everyone. I'm Christine Tulley, President and Executive Writing Coach at Defend, Publish, and Lead, and welcome to episode 250, my top 5 favorite episodes. I'd like to thank my podcast producer, Robin Warner, for suggesting this as our 250th episode. We always try to do something a little bit special, and I've never actually talked about which are my 5 favorite episodes. So we've been doing it for a long time, one episode a week for several years now. And these are the 5 that, for me, were not just the most fun to make, but they're things that I always wanted to know about scholarly writing. And so I did some research into figuring that in. So we are going to look at the top 5 as a countdown today. Writing project mix. So number 5, counting down, your writing project mix is episode 108. This is something that I talk about with faculty and graduate student writers all the time, because one of the things that we try to do at Defend, Publish, and Lead is to really think about how writing figures into your actual semester. So if you're teaching a couple of different classes each term, your spring semester doesn't look like your fall semester. Sometimes you have more energy in the fall. Sometimes the weather is bad in the spring semester and the winter. Sometimes you have a different mix of family obligations. But in general, a lot of times people say they're working on all of their writing projects all the time, and we know that that's not true. It's not possible to work on 5 or 6 all the time. Maybe you could juggle 2 or 3 in a week. And so that writing project mix for a semester, it really helps to kind of think about what can I pull off. So some semesters are better for, say, article writing. Some are better for doing a dream project. Maybe you'll have sort of a short-term project like an article that's due in 6 weeks, and then a long-term project that maybe is, working consistently on a book. So that episode, one of the things I like about it, and the screenshots I'm showing, you don't have to watch the screenshots if you're audio listening, but all the screenshots I show are from our YouTube channel. So if you didn't know this about our podcast, we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, and we're also on YouTube, because a lot of the time when we do some of these episodes, we'll do visuals with them. You don't need the visuals. So if you're somebody that's audio listening to it on a commute, you're never going to look at it on YouTube, totally fine. But one of the things that's on the writing project mix episode on YouTube is a chart that shows a whole bunch of different projects you might consider to put into your mix, and they're not by genre. So there are more things like, what's a short-term project? What's an obligation project that you owe somebody else? What's a dream project? So that one is definitely number 5 for me. If we go down to number 4 is 5 steps for effective writing and research collaborations. I don't do a lot of episodes where I have a number in the title. I'm kind of going contrary to podcasting advice where they say you should always say things like 3 steps for this or 5 steps, because I honestly don't believe it ever takes 3 or 5 steps, which is why I don't do it. But in this case, I did limit it to 5, and one of the most popular steps in there that I recommend, that we've had countless academic partnerships with different writing groups and co-authors working on articles. But one of the things that has been really, really popular is one of the steps in there talks about developing a contingency plan. And so essentially it is, what happens if somebody falls down on the job and doesn't get the writing completed? Because that tends to be one of the biggest ways a writing collaboration can blow up. If somebody is just not answering their email, or they're too slow, or they say they're going to do something and then they don't do it, and it messes everybody else up on the collaboration. So that's episode 43, 5 steps for effective writing and research collaborations. Number 3 is reasons for source support. This is episode 62. And one of the reasons why I like this one is that when I talk to scholarly authors about using sources, so for example, you have a literature review section, or you want to introduce some background information, it's interesting to ask people why certain sources are in projects. And a lot of times faculty writers, graduate student writers can't necessarily identify. They know they need to cite some scholarship, but they don't really know, like, what is the function of that specific source to be in there. This episode draws from a book called How Scholars Write. It's an amazing book. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But one of the things that they do in there, and one of the reasons why I like that book, is there is a chart that talks about different reasons for source support. So why the heck would you want to use a certain scholarly source in a certain spot? I haven't really found anyone that articulates this way. So it's a great book. It's called How Scholars Write. And the episode where I talk about all those reasons, including that chart, is episode 62. So if you want to check that one out, that's a great one to take a look at. Number 2 is an interview with a good friend of mine, Bec Evans. She is from a group called Prolifico, and they do the Written Academy with her husband, Chris Smith. Really great scholars. The book is amazing. It's called Written: How to Keep Writing and Build a Habit That Lasts. But one of the reasons I like about this episode is that Bec and I have had many conversations about scholarly writing over the years and what keeps people motivated to keep doing it. So with academics, there's certainly a high level of burnout. We go through phases where we don't want to write. And so one of the things that she did in this co-authored work is to figure out what gets people to the finish point. What are some of the strategies that they do? And I also like the book because it shows a whole bunch of different strategies in there. So in our interview, which is episode 122, you can check out some of the things that she talked about. So I think it's a really good one to introduce you to that work. But that book is also a great resource, and I will also put that one in our show notes. And then finally, number 1 for me might come as a surprise. But I am very, very into illustrating what actually happens behind the scenes with scholarly writing. And so for number 1 for me, I don't know what I'll say when we get to episode 300 if I ever do this again, but number 1 for me is episode 196, and it's how I used 4 hours of writing time. And one of the reasons I like episodes that show what actually happened when somebody sat down and did some scholarly writing is because there's so much of that process that's a mystery to us, that we don't know what people do. So in this episode, I show all kinds of things, like when I decided to pay a bill very quickly instead of like immediately, opening my file or something like that. And it shows us things like when we say we're going to write for 4 hours, that we don't actually write for 4 hours, but it also shows like some of the patterns in there. So for example, I had 4 hours to get some writing done, which is rare for me. I usually don't have that much, and I bet many of you don't either. But it really shows like how the time is broken up, how I got some things done, how I use the time. But I just like these behind the scenes looks at how scholarly writing is used. So this is also a kind of a future project, but if you are one of our clients or even not one of our clients and you want to talk to me about your writing process at all, I'd love to hear about it. I love illustrating other people's writing processes. So I'm looking for that for future interview episodes. If you're an academic and you're interested in being one of our podcast guests, you definitely can email me at Christine@defendpublishlead.com, or you can contact us on our website, Defend, Publish, and Lead. So speaking of using writing time and using writing sessions effectively, I mentioned in the last couple episodes, and I promise this will be the last one because I don't like to do a lot of commercials on these, but I have mentioned before our Tuesday Toolbox initiative, and Tuesday Toolbox is just a video that comes to you once a week. It's really short, between 5 and 10 minutes, that illustrates how to do a scholarly writing strategy. And you can actually watch the video to kick off your scholarly writing session. So it's a good way to have sort of an idea about how to dive into your writing no matter where you are. And it also shows you specific strategies to get you to a publishable point with your writing. So that's something that I highly recommend. If you're interested in it, you can email me to find out more about it. And we also have that in our show notes. So I hope you enjoyed our 250th episode. And thanks for all of you that have been subscribing and liking it. One fun fact, if you're interested in doing this at all, but some of you have been longtime listeners. If anybody leaves us a review and it just drops me a little email about that review, you can get a free hour of writing coaching from one of our writing coaches. So we're trying to spread the word a little bit about some of the stuff we do. And if you're interested in doing that, it's an easy way to get a free hour. Happy writing this week.